right. Well, thank you for those of you who have shown up to review Mythic Sennarth ahead of our official Prague week on said boss. Um, we're kind of gonna go through a few things. So agenda. We're kind of gonna go through like focus points. Kind of what we should be focusing on during this fight, organized by both the severity of that, focus point or like what we need to be focusing on, as well as also how where they show up in the fight. I'll be looking. We'll be also be looking at little video reviews. We'll be looking at a kill video that I referenced a little bit on positioning and clarity, as well as footage of our own, and then just assigning action items because I fucking love action items. So one of the first things that I want to make very clear is, I mean, this is pretty easy. It's a pretty easy first point. We're gonna be lusting on pole. Uh, there is no benefit to lusting at the end of the fight in the phase 2 just because the boss timer, like you're on a timer as soon as the boss start, like as you pull the boss, and it's better to have lust with DPS potions. Everyone's cooldowns are up, for spiders up, you just get the most value. You lust on this fight for hi, good morning, hero. You lust on pull for damage uptime. You don't lust for any other reason to kill, like to do damage to boss and cleave the spider. This luckily makes the first spider super easy, not even a problem. The biggest and number one priority for the whole, like for the entirety of the fight, is the spooters, the big spiders that show up throughout the fight. They have first off, they are random, so they have random spawn locations. There's really we're going to be praying to RNGesus on their location. That's just how it is. We're gonna roll low. We're gonna roll high. Some pulls. Just gotta get used to where they spawn. We gotta be adaptive. I will be calling those out where they spawn, like left or right, if you're looking at the boss. We get one big ad per platform for 3 total spiders. I've already mentioned that because we're lusting on pull, the first spider should be deleted immediately. So really, we only have to get through 2 hurdles, being the 2 spiders on platforms 2 and 3, and we're fine. This big spider is the number one priority because its ramping raid damage is the biggest killer, like on this fight. It is the biggest source of raid damage. So the faster you kill the big ad, the less raid damage we take, and the more that you can pump the boss. That's why it is typical to 4 heal this, because you can negate the damage by just killing the spider faster, and you just get better uptime killing the boss, because like I've already mentioned, the boss is on a timer. It is beneficial for you to save your cooldowns during the fight, if the ad is coming up. The specific timings of the spiders are something that is scripted. I do not have the direct timings for you right now, but to keep it in perspective, the last phase is on a timer, naturally ending at 5 minutes. So you can expect a spider like every 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes sort of thing. So if you have a 2-minute CD, it may be worth it to actually hold your cooldown for 30 seconds to kill that spider as soon as possible. The yank. So another part that we're going to be talking about is kind of like, this is the second source of damage in death on this fight. It is the yank, just getting pulled. You can group for the group pull. It does physical damage, so AMZ will not work. Bubble works, physical DR works, but not darkness could work, but not AMZ, unfortunately. So this is actually really good. We can put down healing circles, bubbles, that sort of stuff. We can plan for those. Those are actually really good places to do the bubble. Dying to the yank is just straight up throwing, because we need to have all DPS up to kill the spiders like ASAP. Even losing 1 DPS player could be the difference between a kill and not a kill, because we need that damage immediately on spider. Range should never ever have to worry about the yank, because they should be positioning at the back of the room, and if you're at the back of the room, you barely even need to fight it in order to negate the pull. So it's yank is more so a slight healer check on group damage, but if we group enough and we plan cooldowns to kind of stack and heal that with like Dream Flight, or sorry, with Dream Breath, that sort of stuff, it's not gonna hurt. It's more so for melee. So being a melee heavy group, it's going to be a little bit of an issue, but we need to be aware of that. We can easily assign stack markers like in the room for like to allow us where to stand. We will especially be doing this after the first ramp because there's a rock that everyone could stand right on top of, right behind, and just DPS melee and range and not have to move. I will be showing this on video, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So you can like position yourself like in ideal positions because these yanks are scripted. You just need to know where to stand. We can put down raid markers for that, so you know like okay, now go to blue. Okay, for the next yank you're going to purple, sort of thing. So that's the yank. The spread is not as bad as you think in terms of damage. It's just fucking annoying positioning wise. As long as people are spread, the raid damage is actually pretty negligible. If you're not clipping anyone else. So this is like minor healing CDs at the most if it's a bad overlap, because there are bad overlaps with the spread and the yank. I think at one point in this fight, or just regular normal healing throughput. Like there's really not damage coming out besides like the spread, the yank, and the ramping add damage. The most annoying part about the spread mechanic is just having to move around. As you already know, this fight's annoying mechanic is the fact that there's ice on the ground and ice mechanics fucking suck. So be proactive. Like set a countdown for when the spread is coming out, so you know, okay, where can I move to, where can I spread out, get in position, and it not be a problem. Just like the other things in this fight, it's scripted. Just gotta get used to the timings. Be proactive. That's pretty much it. There is one spread mechanic that's actually awful, and that is during the second ramp. So we'll be taking ticking damage going up the ramp without a gate, and we'll be getting, the spread mechanic for like slight AoE damage. If you're not getting hit by tornadoes and you're not standing on one another, and you're relatively healthy, you're not going to die. But to make this a little bit easier, this is something where we would assign either personal defensives or an aura mastery. So wouldn't necessarily be an issue. But like I said, I can show you footage from when we get to there. Now let's talk about the ramps. The ramps is technically like the mythic mechanic, but it is kind of bullshit. We plan to gate effectively on ramps 1 and 3. You could technically gate every single ramp, but it requires you to wait like 10-15 seconds before taking the ramp. And because there's that overlap of taking the ramp and the spread mechanic, taking the Warlock Gate is not ideal. So you kind of want to be spreading around and moving up the ramp as a spread group rather than just everyone stack on gate, take gate, because then it's just going to be spicy on top of ice because you can't gate the entire ramp. It's going to be safer. It's going to be quicker with healing, with DR, defensive and healing throughput just to run up ramp 2. It's going to take practice. Just be patient. Focus on the mechanic when we get to ramp 2. We already did see it a bit already on last Thursday. Gates ideally should be put like the bottom edge of the bottom staircase. That is a way to like basically avoid tornadoes, because your tornadoes generally like gravitate towards the center of it. So like if you point it like nearest to the boss at the base of the stairs, like up halfway through, it's fine. You don't necessarily have to worry about the tornadoes as much. It's also important. Every class has varying degrees of ways to deal with the ice mechanic. We don't have any rogues, but you can shadow step to allies, so you don't actually have to deal with the ice mechanic yourself. DKs can deaths advance, and they don't even have to worry about the fucking sliding mechanic. They can just laugh their way up the ramp. Blink, wild charge, using rescue, all that stuff. Some classes are going to be better equipped at this than others. It's up to you to figure out how can I make this easier for myself with the tools that I have. Yes. So that is, I would say, that would be our first action item is to kind of see and look at talents that people are taking on this fight, um, specifically on like movement and utility going up and like moving around, not the normal talent setup that you would normally think about for like doing damage. Look at talents for like movement. So I would highly recommend looking at that for research. Um, Ramps continued. So there is a top for every platform besides the first platform. So the second and third platforms already, just like Taros, has a random spawn of bullshit on the ground. Um, we're going to roll low on those pretty realistically. So we're just gonna get to platforms 2 and 3 sometimes, and the entire platform is gonna be already covered in fucking ice. It's gonna suck. Um, so you can realistically bait frost spawning on the ground as well with tornadoes, but don't game it too hard. Like don't overemphasize it. Like don't think it's like life or death. Um, the way I looked at it, the way that I was assuming, like observing, was like as groups were doing is that the big spider spawns like halfway through each like platform timing. So before the spider, you're gonna be closer to the right side of the room, like where you just came up the stairs. And then after the spider dies, you want to be towards the left side of the room, ready to go up the stairs. That's generally how the timing works. You just want to be gradually moving to the left. And you can base that. You can divide that in two by like when the spider spawns. Uh, Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna have to learn to deal with ice. That's just kind of like that's really some of the difficulty on this fight is just getting comfortable with how do you move, how do you handle it, class by class, player by player. Um, Keep that in mind. Um, all of this is assuming that there is no extra ice from the big ad spawn. Ideally and realistically, the big ad spawn um, should be throwing ice either off the ledge or where everyone was but no longer is. So like this is what I mean by like spider spawns, range and melee should be moving towards the left side of the room, and at most the spider should be pointing towards the right side of the room. So like where no one is technically. Um, so that's like kind of the strategy. And we if the raid gets blasted with ice, that's just a fucking wipe. It just isn't gonna work out. We that needs to be fixed. Um, Moving on, web debuffs. This is one of the things that will probably be beaten to death during communication and during as we progress by boss, because this is really the most personal liability. Like this is the thing that will have people really be focusing on their responsibility. The idea is that during this fight, if you get targeted to drop the webs on the debuff, you are planting your feet. Unless you're in a very inopportune place, like you're in everyone's way. Like for example, if you're leading the group, but you're on the left side and everyone is to your right, and you get the debuff, the web debuff, like try to start dropping the webs like not in everyone's way, like or just straight up like just saying, "Hey, I'm standing still." That even helps even better. So stacking the webs, getting them in better places is going to be ideal. You can so the web debuff uh, stacks for a slow. That is a slow which can be cleansed off with freedom, with Tiger's Lust. As a shaman, I have a talent called Thunder's Paws that clears ensnaring effects when I swap into Ghost Wolf. That will drop my stacks. So I could technically wait to drop all all of 6 of my stacks, and then Ghost Wolf, it dumps all of the stacks that I took, and I just walk out. So again, this is the whole knowing your class, what utilities you have to like clear your debuffs. Worst case scenario, we should never plan for this. We can bot people outside of webs. That shouldn't ever happen because that means somebody's already fucked up, but we can save you. But we shouldn't plan on it ever. We have a weak aura that will let you know, hey, you have the debuff, stand still, and it will actually time out every single debuff that you drop, so that you can plan for it. So you can like literally count. You know when to move, basically. If it comes to it and we still have problems, I will call people out specifically when they do drop bad placements. I don't want to, but you don't. don't make me. Even if it comes down to just calling out your name in Discord, like, hey, you got this mechanic, fucking don't move. I don't want to do that. Don't make me do that. Personal responsibility. So there's that. And then the last phase. So the last phase, like actually much easier than it's laid out to be. It's kind of just a execute phase. It's really just positioning the spread mechanic to the sides of the room as much as possible. Spreading, drop it off to the sides. If you get targeted to drop the webs, you're dropping it to the back of the group, kind of like towards the stairs that we come up from, so that when the boss knocks us back, the webs catch us and we go back to the center. Other than the spread mechanic and dropping webs in the back, we're going to be stacking underneath the tank for healing, for damage, and grouping up the adds to break the tank out of the tank mechanic. There's no, a lot of like earlier kills, because when they were focused on trying to eke out as much damage as possible, they had people with immunities as well as off tanks intentionally run into the like debuffs on the ground to clear. With our damage, I don't expect that to be an issue. It is helpful, but not necessary for us. And it's also worth noting that naturally, without pushing her to like 5% or whatever, where she like jumps up like we see in heroic, she naturally lands in like the last phase at 5 minutes exactly. So as soon as she jumps down and the floor gets slippery, we're on the last. You can use DPS potions again. So there's that. Does anybody have any questions before or need clarifications before I start showing videos? All right, cool. I think that's pretty much it. So the first thing I want to show, this is, for those of you who know Bill, this is Bill's guild and how his group does Mythic Sennarth. So this is their tank POV, so this is a little bit more of a, as you can see, like in the top right side.
You're not showing anything.
Am I not? Now! This is why. Thank you. Thank you so much. There we go. Hopefully. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So this is a tank perspective. Move it out so you can see the healing cooldowns in the top left. It's really not that big on healing cooldowns. They literally just have an AM and a healing tide off the rip. Ad's already dead. They lusted on pull. Spider's dead. They're spreading out and they're moving left. See, the right side of the room is already full of ice. See, and then if I pause right here, look at their web spawns. They're fully stacked on top of one another right here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. Look how stacked they are. And melee just play around it. And everyone's just, as the phase goes on, they're just sliding left. Grip comes out. He's a DK. He gets to ignore it because that's advanced. LOL. Webs are coming out. And they drop them. The spiderlings that spawn aren't really a factor as long as, like, I mean, it really shouldn't be worth noting that don't stand in swirlies. It's just bad. Unfortunately, they had bad webs on gate, so they took. Actually, let me rewind this. So you can see their gate is like right at the base, right at the right of the stair ladder. So like melee can just run right to the left and take it. And it shouldn't ever be in tornadoes at this like point, like where it's positioned. From what I've been told, like it should go like hug right through tornadoes. They run up, and this is what I talk when I mentioned the rock earlier. This is what I'm talking about. So where you're able to, everyone is able to stand like on this point up against this rock without getting pulled into the boss. You can melee, you can heal, you can cast without getting moved. It's fantastic. So it's places like this where you can just stand still, you just pump. And that was the yank mechanic. after the phase. So it's getting to that point quickly, standing still, just knowing it. This is the spread. It's just being proactive. See how they're already preemptively spreading? You can see the melee already kind of doing that. And then you just fan out a little bit more. They fan out, spread, big ad spawns. And it's a random spawn. It can roll behind, it could spawn behind us, it can spawn to the left of us, to the right of us. We never know. So it spawns, it's already pointed off the ledge. They're blasting, all that fun stuff. In fact, it does look like it spawned about, if I get correctly, a minute 45. So if you have, maybe not the most ideal timing for 2-minute cooldowns, but it's there. They should just be coming off cooldown. So burn ad, moving forward. And it's pretty much rinse and repeat from here. Like, it's spread into grip, all that fun stuff. I'm actually going to see if I can increase the playtime. So they, like I already mentioned, they gate like right at the bottom. This is the second ramp, so like this is where spread mechanics, some of them just run. They spread out. And it's fine. And it's pretty much just copy and paste. Oh, shit. So like you saw right there. I'm actually going to rewind it a little bit. Here comes grip. You can see people off to the right here, kind of positioned for the rock anyway. So you can like do stuff like that. Somebody fell. Oh well. Not ideal. Big ad is spawning at about, it looks like 3:25. So 3 minutes. So if you have a 3-minute cooldown, it's probably best to save it for the third ad. You just keep going. Ramping damage. And you just keep. Like I said, does anybody have any questions as they're watching this, or kind of as I'm kind of going through this, in case I need to rewind or go through it again? What's really going to be important and new for everyone, I think, is really just going to be the last phase as we're coming up here. Here comes another grip. There's another rock. Actually, not necessarily ideal, but they opt to not do the rock. They just run to the very back. They pull webs and stay in phase 2. So she jumps down. Combat timer's 4:57, so 5 minutes. Second potions, we burn. This group's a little bit, more familiar with it because, at 20%. But from here, it is pretty much just rinse and repeat. Chilling Blast comes out. Spread mechanic, you basically spread around the room and drop the debuff. And everyone else comes right back to stand underneath the tank to get the webs so that they can basically die underneath the tank. They get knocked back. And it's just rinse and repeat. Here comes the spread mechanic. They already start spreading out. So they don't have to move. And that's Sennarth.
So I saw the range like kind of not move to the sides. Is that fine?
Like
On that last phase, I saw their range just kind of make a circle around the whole group.
let me see. So let's see. I wish I had nameplates so I would know whose range. So it looks like range is
Their
in the back.
whole
Yeah.
team. Yeah, it's their whole team that basically makes a circle around.
Yeah. So it looks like. So Chilling Blast comes out and they spread out. That seems fine.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that as soon as this, so there's debuffs behind us. Like there will be debuffs behind us, and a pushback is coming in 4 seconds. Ideally, everyone gets back to the center because we want to use healing cooldowns, healing circles, etc. And we want to get the small ads in so that when the tank gets frozen and stunned for 30 seconds, a Spiderling is dying underneath them because that's how you get them out in the last phase. and here comes a pushback. They get pushed back. Some are able to like some melee and some players are able to like negate that, by blinking, by charging, um, by rescuing, that sort of thing, by shadow stepping. Um, Dropping them in the back is a bit greedy, in my opinion. Um, you can drop them in the back, but we need to keep in mind the pushback, and the ability to like clear them. So because realistically, we may get to Sennarth on this last phase, and instead of having 20% HP, she may have 30. So we'll need to do like more than two pushbacks. We may need to do three. So it's important to understand that we need to be conservative with our space. We can't be as greedy as this. But does that answer your question? I hate Chrome's like spacebar controls. Is that clear, Hero? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it should just be a decision on whether we're gonna do it or not, right? Though,
Yeah. So
because if you're saying like we shouldn't be as greedy as this, then fine, let's just move them to the side.
yeah,
Because,
fair enough.
yeah,
Let's move them to the side. If they end up being a big issue and we end up not, being able to, if we can't be greedy, it really just depends on how many pushbacks we get. Truthfully,
yeah, because I saw them like some of them also walked over them before like the pushback came out, and then
yeah.
I'm pretty sure those do like shit ton of damage now.
So actually, I
Like
just
you
saw.
saw right there,
I yeah.
yeah.
So let me go back to let's do half speed. Um, so here they come. They spawn. I mean, their rate is relatively okay. Spawns. Here comes the Resto Druid. He's standing underneath it. He gets hit. He took that little bit of a chunk there. He's fine.
It
He's
also
full
gets rid
HP.
of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then boom, gets rid of it. So like, yeah, we can clear. Healers can clear off. The off tank can clear. DPS with defensives can clear. Um, if it comes to that, but I don't want to make it overcomplicated. I don't want to I don't want to assign people that are like clearing. I'd much rather have players just bring it off to the side. I would rather plan safely than greedily. So we're gonna move it off to the side. Thank you for making me make a decision.
Yeah, because if you're not gonna make a decision, I'll tell you right now, I'm planting my feet.
Fair enough. Yes, fair enough. All right. So, yeah. So if we, and like I mentioned before, it really depends on how like low HP she is when she lands. Like their group, she's 20%, and they get two pushbacks. So like 18%. I don't expect Sennarth to be at 18% because this is a re-clear for them. And this is like pretty. But this is how they approach it. And this boss does have a reputation among further progressed guilds as being a bitch on re-clear because people just get lazy on, killing the ad or, not handling the spread mechanic or the yank or, being greedy like dropping shit in the back. So there's that. So we're not gonna be greedy. We're gonna drop it off to the side. Does anybody else have any questions, or comments, or want any clarifications, decisions made before we wrap it up? No. Cool. I don't just because of time, and we do have heroic. And I want to be respectful of people's times. I don't necessarily think there's a lot of value in seeing our prog or like our stuff on Sennarth because it was pretty messy. We were kind of approaching things a lot differently. This approach is a lot cleaner. Being able to kind of go through kind of our notes. I'll be posting this this PowerPoint as well as this recording for people who weren't able to make it, so that we're on the same page. For action items, I will say, just the standard. Be prepared. Look, like I mentioned before, look at people's talents, not for damage, but look at people's talents for like movement and getting around the fight, clearing debuffs, that sort of thing. That being said, with our damage, with our roster, I expect us to do great things this week, and I hope we get a Sennarth kill.
Woo!
Woo!
Go team!
Yay, go team. All right, I'm gonna cut the recording.